Good evening, everyone. How's it going? Tonight we've got a look at a watch that's highly anticipated probably for a lot of people, including myself. This is the Seiko Baby Alpinist SBDC 115. This is Seiko's newest version of the Alpinist, even though it doesn't say Alpinist. That's kind of a trend and a contentious issue for a lot of people, but really it's clearly an Alpinist. It is a 38 millimeter kind of tool-ish version of the Alpinist. The modern Alpinist is 39 millimeters and has the 4 o'clock crown like many of the older Alpinists, with the compass bezel internal. So removing that took the size down to 38. It has this kind of a fume dial with a green look, green fading to black and around the ring. It has these cathedral hands, a cathedral for an hour and a syringe minute hand with a nice spade in the second. And it has the classic Alpinist style of even numbers being printed and odd numbers being little hashes. And a move that really cheapens this watch, and I didn't really notice it till I got it in hand, but these numbers and hashes were applied, or at least the hashes were, on the older Alpinists, and they are not now. It has, I'll unscrew, it has a screw down crown. It is unsigned. Date at the 3 o'clock, and it has, go forward, I don't know if it's a date change or not. Has the Prospex logo, where the Alpinist logo usually is on an Alpinist, and then automatic and 20 bar, because this is a 200 meter water resistant watch. It's 38 millimeters, like I mentioned, in diameter, 46 millimeters lug to lug, and 12.9 millimeters thick. So this is quite a chunky watch. It also attracts smudges like nobody else. Quite a chunky watch. Has a display case back, pretty standard. This version is the only version that comes on a bracelet. The other two dials, a blue and a cream, I think. Definitely a blue. I can't remember what the other one is. Maybe it's just a black, but come with on a leather strap. But this version comes on a bracelet. It's pretty par. Looks almost exactly like the SARB 35 bracelet. And inside you have a 6R 35. Let me shake it for a minute and get it spinning. 6R 35 movement in here, so the upgraded 6R15. This is my first Seiko in quite a while, so I wasn't used to that slow beat rate. It took me a minute to get used to it. Comes in at a fairly chunky 144 grams on the bracelet, so this is not a small watch. That's as much as a Tudor Black Bay 58 on its bracelet. So it's a pretty hefty weight. So a lot of things are good on this watch. I think the size, aside from the thickness, is pretty perfect for an everyman field watch. I might go a little smaller, but I understand most people have bigger wrists than me. I have 6 3/4 inch wrists. Speaking of which, let me put it on the wrist real quick for you. Has that. I really love the texture, this kind of sandpaper ray skin texture that this dial has. Yeah, I'm going to struggle to probably show it to you in this light, but I'll try and do some B camera shots. But you can see it fits pretty perfectly. The crown's nice and small and doesn't pinch on my wrist when I fold it back. So a really beautiful dial from at least the textures perspective, but really that's about where this watch falls apart for me. Despite Seiko being known for its lume, the lume is pretty unabashedly terrible on this watch. Even though everything's printed, the only lume is on little dots in the track for the minutes. And then the hands themselves are okay lume, but really pretty terrible, honestly, what I would expect out of a Seiko 5 from the early 2000s. So pretty abysmal all the way around. In fact, this watch, when I charge it under a lamp, is worse than the Hellson Shark Diver I normally wear, just sitting in the room when both are taken into a dark area. So pretty terrible. To me, I understand that a lot of people don't like this opinion, but my opinion is that Seiko really went and tried to cash out on their popularity. Uh, you know, this is an almost a $700 watch, street price. So that is absolutely crazy to me. The fact that you have a dial that's just printed when the older version of the watch that still sells for less is applied markers. The lume is terrible. The date wheel doesn't match. The bracelet is nothing to write home about. It's fine, but nothing exciting by any stretch. The lug holes are not drilled, which I wouldn't necessarily expect for a Seiko, but still kind of a ding for me. Unsigned crown. I mean, literally every watch that I've reviewed recently has a signed crown, like including $400 microbrand watches. Heck, I mean, used to be that some of the like Seiko Monster type watches in the sub $300 range had signed crowns from Seiko. So that's just kind of a shame. I don't think the Seiko Monster itself had one, but definitely watches in that price range. And it's super thick, 12.9 millimeters thick. I mean, that's thicker than Black Bay 58. Again, I use that for comparison. Obviously, Black Bay 58 is more expensive, but the Trasca that I just reviewed right here is only 10 millimeters thick, which is a significant difference. So even though these have the exact same dimensions otherwise, and the dial on the Trasca is much bigger, the Trasca actually wears smaller because it's so much thinner. So really, to me, this is just confirmation for me that I should stay away from Seiko. Modern Seiko is just a giant cash grab to me. It's not worth it. The era of the original SARB 17 that's kind of when I got into watches. Back when SKXs were $150, Monsters were $150. On Amazon or wherever, maybe $200 from a reputable place. But the Alpinist was $400. The SARB 35 was like $350. Like to me, those were all. That's when Seiko was a bargain. Now this at $700. That's starting to inch towards like good deal used, but still used Sin 556 territory, which to me is an incredibly superior watch in thickness and finishing and overall quality. You can kind of start to get into for a little bit more. I mean, sure, it's like an appreciable percentage more, but let's say you can save a little extra, have $1,000. You're getting into some pretty serious, used Okanasker territory. Used Amiga Aquaterra quartz territory. Nomos clubs. Lots of very well made, well finished watches that are much more impressive to me than this Seiko. So I know Seiko fanboys, and I used to be one, are gonna hate that, but I'm just not impressed with this watch, and that's a real shame because I love the Alpinist look. I've had the SARB 17, I've had the titanium quartz perpetual calendar version from earlier in the 2000s. I love the concept, and I've never really been able to settle on one that I liked with the compass bezel because I just felt like it kind of cluttered the dial. And so I was very excited when this one came out because no compass dial or no compass bezel inside. So even better because it has the dial I love without the rest of it. But they just felt like they just are really a shell of what they used to be. They're pumping out all these reissues, which you could accuse Rolex and Tudor doing the same thing, but at least those ones, they're Rolex doesn't really innovate, but at least Tudor, with the 58s coming out with a brand new movement with good specs, 70-hour power reserve. Rolex is coming out with 70-hour power reserve, and this one has a pretty good power reserve, but doesn't have any improvements in anti-magnetic, which I would kind of expect from a mass market brand like Seiko for the extra money, double the price that they're asking compared to the older ones. So to me, it's just not what I had hoped it would be. So I know that's not going to make a lot of people excited, but it'll be going on to Random Rob now for him to do a review and then get rid of for me. and it'll make somebody else way happy, which is great. I mean, that's the beauty of this hobby of watches, is that we get to enjoy doing some talking about watches that is, we all have very different opinions on, and that's fine. And there's nothing wrong with this watch. If I had to take this watch as my only watch, I wouldn't necessarily be like unhappy about it, especially after I got used to its little quirks and things I didn't love. But it is still a beautiful watch, and really I think that's what makes it all the more sour to me, is that to me this watch could have been something truly incredible, and a true, showstopper, especially for that price. Even if Seiko charged, say, $800, and the dial, had better lume, the hands had better lume, and maybe there were some small improvements to the bracelet, and maybe they could get rid of the display case back and make it a little thinner. Especially since, Seiko movements are nothing to stare at anyway. So, yeah, that's about all I have to say about this watch. I appreciate the time and look forward to the discussion in the comments. Have a great day.